Welcome, my dear guests, to the captivating expanses of my story.
Chapter 5. The muffled hum of the life support systems filled the bridge of the EK Equinox. Blue light from the holographic displays cast ghostly shadows on the metal walls. The smell of recycled air and stale coffee hung in the air-conditioned atmosphere. Mariana Martin stood before the curved main display, her arms crossed behind her back. Her knuckles stood out white as her gaze slid over the three-dimensional representation of the Ladon system. The yellow-white sun pulsed gently in the center, its corona casting flickering shadows on the holographic representation of the 7 planets. The extensive asteroid belt shimmered like a ring of broken diamonds between Ladon.AI and IE. Dr. Erika Bergmann typed on her tablet, her eyes sparkling with scientific enthusiasm. The soft click of her fingernails on the screen echoed through the room, interrupted by the rhythmic whirring of life support. The alloy in the asteroid belt exhibits properties that we previously only knew in theory. It is a perfect blend of stability and conductivity. The molecular structure contradicts all known material, constant. The second alloy on Ladon V behaves similarly, but with completely different basic elements. Lieutenant Schwan projected the analysis data following the system map. Green columns of numbers scrolled across the display while complex molecular structures rotated in the air. As the data pulsed in the same rhythm as the distant star, Anna Sean leaned back in her pilot's seat. The leatherette creaked with movement as her fingers slid over the sensor controls. The most interesting find is this planetoid. She zoomed in on a section of the asteroid belt. A nondescript chunk of rock rotated slowly on its axis, its jagged surface glittering metallically in the starlight. Gravity is working outwards instead of inwards. Our sensors show gravitational values that contradict all known laws of physics. The measuring devices register a constant repulsion of 3.71 meters per second. Do we have an explanation for this anomaly? Mariana's voice sounded tense. Her knuckles turned white. The discoveries of the last few weeks called into question everything they thought they knew about this supposedly insignificant system. A cold shiver ran down her spine. Dr. Bergmann shook her head. Her gray hair shimmered in the bluish light of the displays as she scrolled through her notes in frustration. The data is clear, but it doesn't make sense. The gravitational reversal seems to be permanent and stable. We've never observed anything like this before. Even the most advanced anti-gravity theories can't explain this phenomenon. Planetoid's energy signatures fluctuate regularly, Schwan added. She projected a complex wave pattern into the air, the blue lines pulsating in time with an eerie symmetry, almost like a heartbeat. The amplitude peaks every 47 minutes, followed by a gradual decrease. Soft beeping of the instruments filled the thoughtful silence. Mariana stepped closer to the hologram. The blue lights reflected in her eyes. 3 anomalies in one system. That can't be a Have the reports been completed? Mariana's fingers drummed on the armrest of her commander's chair. The metallic tapping mingled with the humming of the system. Dr. Bergmann nodded as her hands flew over the tablet. The xenoarchaeological analysis is complete. I've compared the data for the 2 alloys with all the known materials in our database. No matches. Navigation logs and sensor recordings are fully documented. Anna-san activated a new screen on her display. Blue lights danced across her face, including the incidents on Ladon V. Lieutenant Schwan projected a list into the air. The physical measurement data of the planetoid has been categorized and evaluated. The energy fluctuations remain constant. Mariana rose from her chair. Her boots made a muffled sound on the metal floor of the bridge. Computer, initiate quantum entanglement to Fleet Command and Senate. The computer system beeped in confirmation. Quantum entanglement established, ready to transmit Transmit the data collected from the Ladon expedition. Priority level Alpha. Mariana watched as the progress bar scrolled across the main screen. The encrypted data packets disappeared in a stream of quantum information. Transmission successful, the computer reported. Confirmation of receipt from Fleet Command and Senate has been received. Dr. Bergmann leaned back in her chair. The artificial leather creaked as she moved. 3 months of research work, summarized in a data package, a complete mapping of the Ladon system. Schwan deactivated the holographic projection. The bridge went dark momentarily before the typical lighting systems took over, with more questions than answers. The bluish light of the holomap bathed Sevia's study in a ghostly twilight. Myra Gupta leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the rotating planets of the Ladon system. Her colorful robes starkly contrasted the austere, dark furniture of the Imperial office. These anomalies in the asteroid belt, Sevia pointed to 2 pulsating points between Ladon, E and I. The hologram zoomed in closer, showing crystalline structures running through the rock like cobble. The alloy resembles nothing we know. Myra rubbed her chin, her brow furrowed. The patterns remind me of the crystal formations on Kasach, but the molecular structure is completely different. She typed a sequence into her datapad. The density exceeds anything we've discovered so far. The asteroid belt rotated slowly in front of them, a ballet of ice and stone. Sevia activated the next marker. A single planetoid glowed red, hovering like a bleeding eye among the other celestial bodies. Reverse gravity, muttered Sevia. Dr. Bergmann's measurements show an anti-gravity bubble surrounding the entire planetoid. She projected the measurement data next to the hologram. Numbers and diagrams flickered through. Myra stepped closer to the projection, her fingers dancing through the data. That contradicts all known laws of physics. The amount of energy it would take to artificially create something like this. She shook her head. And then there's Ladon v. Sevia panned the projection to the icy planet. The recordings of the shuttle flight played back, showing the eruption of the cryovolcano. Methane fountains broke through the frozen surface, hurling blocks of ice, weighing tons into the thin atmosphere. The organic signatures in the ice. Myra scrolled through Dr. Bergmann's analysis. They show similarities to the mycelial structures on Loki, but these appear to be intelligently grown. Sevia leaned back in her chair, her blue eyes fixed thoughtfully on the rotating display. The light from the holop made her long dark hair shimmer like obsidian. 3 anomalies in one system can't be a coincidence. Myra nodded slowly, her ordinarily cheerful expression serious. The only question is, who created them? And most importantly, she pointed at the pulsating anti-grav bubble. Why, the heavy... Mariana Heimber stepped inside, her plain grey robes rustling with every step. She froze when she saw the rotating holomap of the Ladon system. The bluish light made her short grey hair shimmer silver. Mother. Her voice sounded as sharp as a knife. New expeditions into the depths of space again. Sevia turned to her adopted daughter, her face calm and collected. The EK Equinox has detected disturbing anomalies. Understand? Nadine stepped closer to the holomap, her hands clenched into fists. Any further expedition is an insult to divine order. The Helix teaches us to focus on the purity of our genes, not the exploration of God. Myra Gupta cleared her throat quietly, saying, General Heimber, the anomalies could pose a threat to Kasach. We can't just silence Nadine's penetrating gaze, fixed on the governor. You're all blinded by scientific arrogance. Can't you see that every step further into space takes us off our true path? She pointed to the pulsating planetoid with its anti-gravity bubble. These abominations are a sign. The gods warn us not to go further into their domain, Nadine. Sevia's voice was soft but firm. As Impreatrix, I must protect the realm and its people. That includes researching potential threats. Researching is what you want. A derisive laugh escaped Nadine. Your spaceships penetrate the darkness and allow alien technology to violate our sacred territories. She moved to the massive window and looked at the shimmering protective barrier of her cap. In the prophecies of the Helix, we see a destruction coming our way. If we continue on this erroneous path, the Helix can be wrong, Sevia replied calmly. Their doctrines must keep pace with the changing time. With an abrupt movement, Nadine turned around, anger blazing in her eyes. Heresy, these words from the mouth of my birth mother. Her head swung back and forth in disbelief. You are endangering the pure bloodline of our people while your scientific thirst for research leads you astray. With angry steps, she left the room. Found the conference room on the 157th floor of the Astramine Tower, swam in a diffused twilight. High panoramic windows provided a view of the steel-grey skyline of Xanadu, where transport gliders buzzed around like glowing insects between the skyscrapers. The subdued light hid the fine beads of sweat on Olga Petrov's forehead as her fingers glided over the smooth holopad. The projected data of the Ladon system floated as a three-dimensional model above the polished obsidian table. Red markers pulsed at the locations of the anomalies, crystalline structures in the asteroid belt, the planetoid with its enigmatic anti-gravity, and the organic signatures on Ladon VE. The informants at Fleet Command have done a great job. Klaus Schmidt leaned back in his chair, his broad shoulders straining against the tailored suit. The imitation leather crunched under his massive frame as he scrutinized the floating data points. This data is worth its weight in gold. Fleet intelligence will need to secure its channel as well. Dr. Samira Al-Fad stepped closer to the projection, her white lab coat reflecting the bluish hologram light. Her slender fingers danced through the holograms, magnifying details of the crystalline structures and rotating three-dimensional molecular models. That's the composition of these alloys. It's beyond anything we've seen before. But the analysis is complicated. These lattice structures do not follow any known pattern. Quantum dynamics. Olga pronounced the name like a key, her eyes fixed on the rotating crystal lattices. Your quantum computers could give us insights that our conventional systems could never achieve. The computing power of their systems exceeds ours by orders of magnitude. A collaboration with QD. Klaus frowned, drops of sweat glistening on his bald forehead. His fingers drummed a nervous rhythm on the armrest, and his face darkened. That means sharing the profits. Eisenberg is a tough negotiator, better a part of something big than all of nothing. Samira projected an analysis of the anti-gravity effects, the data swirling through space like a glowing tornado. Theoretical implications of this anomaly alone. Dr. Eisenberg will be licking his chops. The calculations could revolutionize years of research. Olga stood up, her tall figure casting a long shadow across the conference table. The metal implant on her temple glinted in the glow of the holograms. We need her computing power and their discretion. She pointed to the organic signatures of Ladon V, which pulsed through the three-dimensional model like phosphorescent veins, saying, whatever lies dormant down there, it could change everything, but only if we can hide it from the Empire. The fleet is already stepping up patrols in this sector. The room filled with the quiet hum of the air conditioning as the three board members looked at the floating data. The holographic light was reflected in their eyes. Outside, a thunderstorm was brewing. Lightning flashed between the skyscrapers and cast ghostly shadows through the windows. Thunder rumbled in the distance like a grim warning. I'll arrange a meeting with Eisenberg. Olga activated her communication implant, and the diodes under her skin lit up blue discreetly. Without official channels, his private residence on Luna is convenient. She turned to the window, watching her reflection in the darkened pane, her eyes narrowed to slits. The Ladon system holds secrets greater than any of us, and I have no intention of letting them escape us. The anomalies will show us the way to a new mining era. Purple lightning flashed through the night sky above Xanadu, while heavy raindrops pelted the huge panoramic windows of LaCroix. The restaurant was enthroned on the 200th floor of the crystalline tower, far above the thundering storm clouds. Dr. Marcus Eisenberg sliced a perfectly grilled piece of Kasach lojan meat from his plate. The soft candlelight was reflected in the finely cut wine glasses, making the fine china tableware shimmer. A subtle scent of saffron and rosemary permeated the air. The soft click of heels on the polished marble floor made him look up. Olga Petrov made her way through the exclusive atmosphere of the restaurant, past the dark leather-covered seating niches. Her black evening dress almost blended into the shadows between the dim wall lights. "Good evening, Marcus." Without hesitation, she sat down opposite him. Her slender fingers glided over a small device on her. A barely perceptible buzz filled the air as the discretionary screen rose around her table. Marcus put his cutlery aside. Olga, a rare honor. His eyes narrowed slightly. The discretion screen wasn't necessary. LaCroix guarantees absolute privacy. A knowing smile curved her lips. "Not for what I want to show you." She activated a hologram above her palm. Crystalline structures floated between them, crisscrossed with alien patterns. Data from the Ladon system. Your quantum computers could help us unlock the secrets of these anomalies. Marcus leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the rotating structures. Fascinating, but from where? The details are unimportant. Olga brushed aside his unspoken question. What counts is the potential. Your computing power combined with our mining expertise. She projected more data. A planetoid with inverted gravity, organic signatures under kilematic ice, technology that defies everything we know. A rumble of thunder shook the windows. Marcus took a sip of wine while he studied the data. The Helix will not be pleased when they learn of our collaboration. The Helix is too preoccupied with its dogmas. Olga deactivated the hologram. While they debate genetic purity, we can make history. She leaned back, her dark eyes dulling into his. "So, Mark, are you in?" Marcus twirled the wine glass between his fingers as the ruby-red drink shimmered in the candlelight. His eyes never left Olga's face, searching for hidden clues in her expressions. An intriguing proposition. He put the glass down, but quantum dynamics is not a charity. "What's in it for us?" Olga pulled a slim data tablet out of her clutch. With an elegant movement, she slid it across the table. Exclusive rights to all patents arising from the analysis of the anomalies. 30% of the mining rights in the Ladon system. A flash of lightning lit up the room. The thick glass almost completely swallowed up the muffled rumble of thunder. Marcus's fingers tapped a precise rhythm on the polished tabletop. 50% of the mining right and free access to all the data Astronomy collects in the Ladon system. 40%. Olga leaned forward, her voice becoming a velvety whisper, plus preferential access to any further anomalies we discover in the outer systems. Marcus reached for his cutlery and methodically sliced off another piece of meat. The Helix will ask questions, especially about the, let's call it, creative way you got this data. The Helix is busy with more important things. Olga took a sip of wine. Nadine Heimber is leading a veritable crusade against genetic impurity. The perfect time for discreet undertakings. And the Impreatrix? Marcus's voice remained neutral, but his eyes narrowed slightly, too busy trying to balance the Helix and the Senate. Olga activated the hologram of crystalline structures again. By the time anyone asks questions, we'll have established the facts. Marcus looked at the rotating patterns. The strange geometry seemed to contradict every known crystal structure. His fingers moved like they were already performing calculations on an invisible keyboard. We need a cover, a legitimate reason for our groups to work together, already in the works. Olga projected another document, a joint venture to optimize quantum communications in the mining colonies. Perfect cover for data exchange. Another flash flashed across the night sky. The bluish light made Marcus's face look like a mask for a moment. Show me the complete sensor data from Ladon V. Sunlight streamed through the plenary chamber's high arched windows, making the polished marble walls shimmer in warm golden tones. The circular room was filled with the muffled murmur of senators as they settled into their curved ranks. Above some empty seats floated life-size holographic projections of the absent senators, their translucent figures surrounded by a subtle bluish glow. Dr. Rita Griffin's hologram flickered briefly as a glitch ran through the quantum link. Her virtual presence, projected by the high-resolution emitters on the ceiling, looked deceptively real despite the slight delay in her movements. The Equinox data clearly shows that the system is rich in resources. Her voice came clearly over the audio system, only slightly distorted by the transmission from the research station. Elena Petro's holographic figure leaned forward, her outline blurring briefly before the projection stabilized. The sunlight shone through her ethereal form, casting no shadows on the marble floor. The anti-gravity effects on the planetoid could provide revolutionary insights. Imagine the technological possibilities. Sevia watched the interaction between the physical participants and the holograms from her raised podium. The projection technology was so sophisticated that the virtual participants could take part in the discussion seamlessly, even if occasional interference patterns betrayed their true nature. Senator Marcus Volt, who was physically present, snorted contemptuously. His massive figure almost filled 2 seats as he leaned heavily forward. The heavy brocade fabric of his robe rustled as he moved. His voice echoed real through the hall, rough and cutting, not filtered through the communication system. A barren system with no habitable planets. It's hardly worth wasting our resources on. The development costs would eat up any profit. Then the holographic image of Dr. Griffin flickered again as she stood up. Her projection flickered to the rhythm of her excited hand movements. The organic signatures on Ladon V are highly unusual. The molecular structures show patterns that we have never seen before. Her projection briefly overlapped the representation of the planetary system floating in the hall's center, creating mesmerizing refractions. The holographic layering made the planets appear like precious jewels. Sevia rose, her physical presence in marked contrast to the ethereal holograms. The heavy imperial robe fell in dignified folds around her figure. The Ladon system may seem inhospitable at first glance. Her clear voice effortlessly filled the room, each word precisely chosen. About its strategic position between the trade routes to Polaris and Luan-Yun makes it a perfect expansion point. The scientific anomalies could prove to be the key to breakthroughs. We must not leave this opportunity to others. The chandelier above them cast dancing reflections of light on the walls, mingling with the bluish glow of the holograms. Crystal prisms refracted the light in rainbow colors. The technology lent the time-honored chamber a surreal atmosphere in which past and future seemed to merge. Shadows and light danced across the centuries-old frescoes on the ceiling. The heavy air in the plenary chamber vibrated from the discussions. Sevia Heimber stroked the smooth wood of her podium. The projections of the planets circled slowly in the center of the room. while the holograms of the connected senators floated like ghosts between those physically present. The Senate will now vote on the timing of the incorporation of the Ladon system. Her voice cut through the murmur. 3 options are available: immediate expansion, preparation within the next 6 months, or postponement indefinitely. Helena Petrov's holographic projection flickered excitedly. A hasty expansion would tie up too many resources. The fleet is already heavily strained by the situation in the Wayality system. The heavy air in the plenary hall vibrated from the discussions. The projections of the planets circled slowly in the center of the room, while the holograms of the connected senators hovered like ghosts between those physically present. "We're wasting our time here." Marcus Vogt's voice thundered through the hall. His massive figure leaned forward, the heavy brocade fabric of his robe rustling. "A system with no habitable planets, filled with unpredictable anomalies. The cost of exploration would tie up our resources for years. I advocate option 3, postponement indefinite." Dr. Griffin's translucent figure moved through the floating planetary display. Her projection flickered to the rhythm of her hand movements. "The scientific anomalies require thorough preparation. Hasty research could destroy valuable findings. For once, Senator Vogt is making the right argument here." Sevia let her gaze wander over the assembly. The tensions between the various factions crackled almost palpably in the air. The sunlight streaming through the high windows made the golden embellishments of her robes gleam. Senator Vogt's arguments weigh heavily, her words echoed off the walls. "The position of the system makes it strategically interesting, but the risks and costs of a hasty expansion could place an unnecessary burden on the Empire." The holographic voting display materialized over the center of the blue lines of energy, interlinked to form a complex matrix of numbers and graphs. As more and more senators supported votes, the physically present senators typed their decisions into the recessed displays in their seats. The holograms of the connected members flickered as they transmitted their voices over the quantum link. Crystal rays of light from the chandelier refracted in the floating holograms, causing a surreal play of colors to dance across the walls. The tension in the hall intensified with each incoming voice. By the propulsion system's muffled hum permeated the EK Equinox's metal corridors. Mariana Martin stood on the bridge and watched the passing stars through the transparasteel dome. Her knuckles stood out white as she clung to the railing. The message from the Senate weighed heavily on her shoulders. "Course confirmation for the Polaris system, Commander." Lieutenant Schwan turned around in her pilot's seat. The bluish light from the navigation console reflected in her eyes. "Jump sequence in 20 minutes. Mariana nodded curtly. The postponement of the Ladon expansion gnawed at her. All her discoveries, the crystalline structures and the anti-grav planetoid, would now gather dust in the air. The threat from the Almorans weighed heavier. Dr. Erika Bergmann stepped up beside her, a holopad in her hands. "The sensor data from Ladon V still shows anomalies of organic signatures." Her voice sounded muffled, as if she didn't want to disturb the tense atmosphere on the bridge. "We could." "No." Mariana cut her off. "The Senate has decided. We have new priorities." Erika brushed her fingers across the flickering hologram of the civilian star chart. The bluish light cast ghostly shadows on her face as she looked at the 60 light-years between her position and the Wayality system. The map detail of the Polaris system blurred into an impenetrable grey, the fog of war obscuring any particulars of the trinary star system. The metal walls of the bridge reflected the muted hum of the system. Anna Sean bent over her science console with beads of sweat glistening on her forehead in the light of the displays. Public trade data shows a 40% drop in civilian ship movements across the sector. Mariana rubbed her temples. The gentle vibration of the ship beneath her feet reminded her of the responsibility that weighed on her shoulders. The traders are avoiding the border region. Flying reports of military convoys are piling up on Galnet. Lieutenant Schwan scrolled through the public news. The crunching of her leather chair broke the tense silence. The Trade Guild warns of increased military traffic on the main routes, and was sitting here with our scientific sensors. Erika laughed bitterly. Her fingers drummed a nervous rhythm on the edge of the hollow console. Blind to everything that happens beyond our immediate vicinity, the Almorans have established an outpost. That's not speculation. That's confirmed information from the Senate. Mariana's voice cut through the recycled air of the bridge like a knife. The rest may be a rumor, but the threat is real. Anna leaned over her console, her brow furrowed. The mining corporations have shut down their operations in the border regions. This is happening for a reason. They're testing our borders, Mariana said as she stepped up to the railing of the raised command platform. The gaze swept across the curved transparisteel dome to the passing stars. While discussing it here, we're missing out on important discoveries. The research is already suffering. Erika's voice sounded tired. She brushed aside the star chart and opened her records of Ladon V. All these anomalies, all these possibilities, and we have to ignore them because the political situation's too unstable. Thunder reports from the returning transport ships are piling up about plundered raw material deposits. Lieutenant Schwan turned away from her station. These stone creatures seem to be plundering every available resource. They don't seem interested in planets. The oppressive silence of the bridge crew was interrupted by the countdown signal as the hyperspace drive ignited, catapulting the ship into the unknown depths of space.
Hey, I would be happy if you could give my video a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to my